Welcome back to It's a Graham and Matt podcast. I'm Matt.
I'm Graham.
And I'm Alan.
Oh,
Yep.
week 2. Alan, what's this, Alan? Does that means he's selling weed?
Maybe.
Is that what that means? Paper chasing.
I'm papered.
So I imagine all of you guys, much like us, just finished watching the Super Bowl.
Lame.
The most boring game I've ever watched in my life.
That was a
bad.
boring one for sure.
I would like your guys' thoughts on the halftime show myself.
Oh my.
Oh, you know, so here's
bad,
the deal. I don't think he lip synced.
No, I don't think he
so that's good. I'm gonna give him credit for that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'll give credit for them doing one. You know, just the fact that like they got people down on the field and they did a pretty like the presence was pretty cool. Like at the top, like the first part of it, we're at the top of the stadium and things like that. Like that was kind of cool to see. And the zombie choir or whatever they're doing with their like they look like the old Oakleys that you'd pull over your head.
They kind of looked like jock straps to me. I'm not gonna lie to you.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's what those old Oakleys look like.
Yeah. I just thought I thought the whole thing was a little boring. I'll give it that. The only part that I thought was kind of cool was like when he was like in that mirror room with the camera and everything. That part was kind of cool. But like, apart from that, like, I was like, this is just
that was
boring.
That was a Billie Eilish move too. She did that for like the Grammys or whatever.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I
It was boring. It wasn't
yeah, I thought that it could have gone a little bit better.
Yeah.
The whole time I was thinking to myself like, oh, this is like kind of like Bruno Mars except for shitty.
Yeah. Because that was actually enjoyable.
I was met with other people sharing that same sentiment.
Yep.
On social media, and I was like, all right, cool. At least I'm not the only one who thinks that.
See, I believe the last time the Super Bowl was in Florida, Prince was the halftime show. And you know, being from Minnesota, obviously Prince is like royalty to us. He's royalty everywhere. I mean, like
that's definitely true.
You're not gonna beat Prince halftime show at all.
No, that was one of the best ones ever.
Did like fun fact about that? Like, did you know like it was raining that day, and he called up the producers of the halftime show and said, "Can you make it rain any harder?"
Oh God.
Yeah, I'll dial 1-800-Jesus.
Can you just make it rain harder, baby?
And the best part is like when he got to playing Purple Rain was when it was like the peak of the rain shower actually that day.
Yeah.
It was just perfect.
That's sick. Speaking of Prince and halftime shows, Alicia and I were talking about when JT did the halftime show and his little Prince tribute here in Minnesota. That was dope. That was fucking perfect. So yeah, Tom Brady now has 7 rings, right?
Yep,
7 rings.
It's number 7, more than Michael Jordan.
He retires. Let's hope he retires.
I don't know, man.
All I want.
Like if football's back, like with fans in the stands next year, the Bucks are going to do anything to keep him for at least 1 year to get some of that money back.
He'll be back.
I mean, they're going to get a bonus now because of the Super Bowl, but they want to get their money back for sure.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I'm so sick of seeing him win all the time. It's just boring. So
it is. It's Patriots in the Super Bowl. You know, like that just got old. It gets old. It's cool seeing dynasties and stuff like that, and players like him. I mean, 43. Come on, you got to give him that. But
yep.
Now he has broken every record in the book.
Yep, that's true.
Well, let's. I mean, look at it this way too. I mean, I don't want to come off as sounding like some sort of conspiracy theorist, but he is the NFL's golden.
But you are.
He is the NFL's golden. He is the NFL's golden boy. Which is totally fine. I mean, like, you know, they have the right to choose that. You know, it's between him and Aaron Rodgers. Yeah. Rodgers.
Well, and that's just it too. What, you know, like a friend of mine we talked about this the other day. If Tom Brady would have went to the Vikings, would we have won a Super Bowl this year?
Yes.
No.
I mean,
Hell no.
But then that debunks Alan's conspiracy theory. Then
we only go to this. We only do well every 8 years. Sorry, every 10 years. That's it. So we're not going to have another good season until 28. Calling it right now. We will not have another good season until 2028. But see. You know what?
I'll be damn near 50. I don't know if I can handle that.
Aren't you turning 50 like next year, dude? Every episode. So contrary to popular belief right now, this episode is not, in fact, about football. But I mean,
no.
While you guys are hearing this probably later on this week, this is recorded right after the Super Bowl. So that's our immediate takes.
Yep.
But Graham,
you're gonna miss it there. Yeah, I got a guest today. I'm checking to see if they're ready here. So every 4 weeks at least. So we've talked about doing a few things here, and we're talking about like seasons of It's a Graham and Matt podcast. And so this season we decided that we want to make sure we have guests, right? And so we're gonna bring guests in. We're gonna have conversations with guests. Our first one went over very well. It was a very good evening with our friend, and so we're kind of hoping that we can get the same response and same energy this week. And so going with that too, if you want to be a guest on the show, we're going to bring that up too. If you want to be a guest on the show, you just message me, message Matt, message Alan, and we'll get you on. Otherwise, we're going to find people every 4 weeks to make sure that we can have somebody on the show.
Yeah, absolutely.
So in the waiting moment, we all know our guest, I think.
Who is the guest?
I can't tell you.
So Alan and I don't know yet. That's the fun thing. So I guess if we're talking about kind of what we're considering doing, we'd love to hear some feedback on this idea. But we've talked about potentially even doing some live episodes to kind of shake things up and help kind of grow the audience a bit more. And so we've kind of gone back and forth on how we do it, whether or not we'd be doing it through just YouTube or YouTube and Facebook simultaneously. But I think we're thinking about that a lot because it gives us an opportunity to kind of react with you guys as the show is happening. And it kind of gives a live discussion as we're going, which we think would be really cool. We did that. Graham and I had done that in the past on Facebook.
And it was difficult.
Yeah, the technology was pretty shitty back then, as was Graham's Wi-Fi. So.
Hey,
that hasn't really changed though.
Ginger
Here
Bear.
we go. Ginger Bear.
Who could that be?
Is it Rob?
Oh no! Is it Rob? I'm not. Oh no! That's like the biggest oh yes I've ever had.
There we go.
Oh,
here we go, everyone.
Oh, Rob, if I could give you a hug through the screen, I would. Oh man,
that's amazing.
Best guess ever. I'll drink.
What up,
that.
readers?
What up?
What up?
All right, everyone.
Oh, we're gonna have a great episode tonight.
We are gonna have a great episode.
Best episode ever.
So my guess this week traditionally goes by Rob. We don't do last names on the show.
Oh,
I don't
okay.
think we do. Have we? No, we haven't yet. But we haven't done that.
That's good to know. I won't use them.
Yeah, yep. But cordially tonight, Tammy Gaye Baker, right there for you guys.
Bakery.
Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot the Y. I'm drunk.
Yeah, Tammy Gaye Bakery for copyright reasons.
I fixed it. Tammy Gaye Bakery.
There you go.
All right,
Tammy Gaye Bakery.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic.
Alan left already. He must.
No, just no, just restarting my video.
I
bet you say that to all the girls.
Maybe.
All right, so the way we want to do this, Rob, is we're gonna ask questions. You carry on conversation. If you have things you want to talk about, you talk about, and kind of let it go. My first question that I'm gonna have, but unless Matt had one first.
Nope, you're good.
Okay, so how do you know all of us?
Well, I started Bible college with Graham. Matt bought his wedding ring from my husband.
So Rob sends me this text back in the day. We'll go by Tammy here. Tammy sent me a text back in the day saying, "Hey, I just jizzed all over my boyfriend's face." And I was like, "Oh, cool. That's great. Thanks, Rob." And I was like, "Who's your boyfriend?" He's like, "I'll send you a picture." And I think I said something along the lines like, "It's not with cum on it, right?" He's like, "No." Lo and behold, he sends me a picture of the jeweler that I just bought my wedding ring from. Sweetest guy ever, though. And I was like, "Oh shit, I know him. I've talked to him several times now.
Sweet, salty, we love him."
And now my whole perception is totally different when I talk to him, because now all I can think about, well, like I said, I tell me what I'm thinking about already. But yeah.
Hey, Matt, you missed the beginning part of that story because it involves your wife.
Oh, okay.
So when I went over to a mutual friend's house who lives behind Graham's house, or at the time they did, and I think, were you living there at the time, Matt, or were you just hanging out with everyone? Okay, you were. Okay.
Yeah, I was living there. Yep.
So at the time, I think you and your wife were just still engaged. Yep. And I came out to people and just started telling people, it's like, yes, just so you know, I'm gay. Your wife's very first question, and I've gotten this multiple times, was, who's better at sucking dick, men or women? To which my response was, I don't know yet, but when I find out, I'll let you know. So when I found out, I texted your wife and said, men, definitely men.
Oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to ask her if she remembers that. That's hilarious.
Yeah, and then that's when I was like, that's when I texted you, because I was at work. At the time, I worked the overnight shift for Graham. Yep. And, everybody would be in bed except for me, because I was awake for the shift most of the time. And so I had to, that's when I messaged you about Mr. Bakery and I having our first pre-date sex, which, for gay people, it's just a handshake. I mean, really.
That's fair.
Yeah. So totally fair.
Yeah. Yeah, totally fair.
Yeah, I remember the day you came out to me, because you and I went to Burger King for lunch or something like that, and you're just like, "Hey, by the way, I'm gay." I was like, "Yeah, I kind of figured." I was like, "Yeah, cool, man."
The excitement from anybody, we're all like, "Yeah."
To the surprise of no one.
Yeah.
The blind and the deaf knew I was gay.
Yeah,
No,
cool.
I knew Rob was the first time. So when I first saw Rob we met at Oak Hills. It was the first day of school. And Rob was wearing
rainbow tie-dye.
Rainbow tie-dye t-shirt, corduroys. It was like brown corduroys or like orange corduroys, and like wing-toed shoes and like pink hair.
All right, I'm into it.
And I think, wasn't I wearing a tie-dye rainbow bandana that matched the shirt?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, and school's gonna be like, I was like, this school's where I'm at for sure, because like my other best friend, we went and smoked a bowl on our first 10 minutes after I got to the school, and we're like, hey, we should go for a trip. I'm like, yep, we should.
No, it was when I came out, I was like kind of bothered, because my coming out experience was so incredibly boring, because nobody was surprised. I came out and people were like, nobody was like, oh, you're so butch. I mean, my junior and senior year, when I had my own dorm room, I filled it with antiques and I wallpapered my walls.
Yep.
Wait, you wallpapered your walls?
Well, close. What I did is I bought cheap patterned fabric, and then I used spray starch and glued the fabric to the walls as temporary wallpaper. I had a crystal decanter filled with brandy. And I would sit in a rocking chair, drinking my little snippets of brandy, reading Systematic Theology by Wayne Grudem, which I still own because I needed to hold up my table.
Ooh, I'm pretty sure I also still own that book, or my wife owns it. One of us still owns that book.
That one was my monitor stand for a while.
Yeah, it cost $55, and because I failed Christian Faith 1, just at the beginning class, I still owe the record for the number of times taking that class, because it's 8 o'clock in the morning, and there's no amount of theology you can learn at 8 o'clock in the morning through one bloodshot eye. None.
No.
And so I had to take that class 4 times so that I could do it. And they changed editions halfway through, so I bought it twice.
Oh no.
Yeah. I was so angry at that old man.
Yeah. Who did you take that class with? Was it like
It was Gib.
I took it from Gib. Yeah.
Oh man.
The Flying Dutchman. Yeah.
Yep.
Who would cancel class to go fishing.
That's awesome. I only ever had one class with him, and like I wrote a paper on why I thought postmodernism was the answer, and I got an A on it, which I was very happy with.
Yeah.
Because as far as I knew, homeboy hated postmodernism. But I think I took interpersonal skills 3 times with Randy.
For somebody who doesn't have them, why is he teaching it?
I don't know. In fact, I feel like I've heard you say that before.
So it gets mailed directly to him, by the way.
I'm fine. I'm part of a good union now at my job. I'm okay. He can't.
Yeah. He's like, I'm tenured. I ain't getting fired for shit.
Yeah. There's no, like, I mean, granted, like, if I come back to Bemidji like this, there's a lot of bars I can't go to,
True.
And I'm pretty sure Oak Hills is one of them, but that's not going to stop me to go, because I want to get this to the prayer chapel.
Yeah.
And I keep trying to convince Mr. Bakery to have sex with me in the prayer chapel. Or anything. Just like I tried dragging him in there one time. It's like, I just want you to kiss me in here. He's like, no. I'm like, come on, it's tradition. He's like, it's a terrible tradition. He's like, we're not doing that. I'm like, oh, what about the swing outside the prayer chapel? He's like, I'm going home. And so he just walked away. So, because for those of you who are listening who may not know, at Oak Hills, there's this little chapel that's 20 feet by 20 feet. Like, it's small.
Super small.
If that. And it's meant for prayer reflection. They had to take the stained glass out of the windows so that the security guard could see if people were boning in there.
Yeah,
Graham, you know what I'm talking about.
It got the nickname of the Stabbing Cabin.
The Stabbing Cabin. That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yep.
And it was this lovely views over the lake, and there was this giant Bible there, and like some people would pray there, but I just stopped going there after dark because it was just super awkward walking in on people. And granted, most of those people are divorced now, but it's still a little awkward to walk in on that because it's just like, oh God, I'm sorry, like straight people, okay, because
the building was put there for people to be on their knees, so it's just a matter of like how that.
I have to. I do want to go back to Oak Hill someday and just install a glory hole, just so I can get my picture with it. Like something would happen. Because like I don't know if you've been there recently, but they've built a new dormitory, so now it's just one giant building, and every dorm has its own bathroom.
What?
Yes, no, that's what
we missed out for sure.
Oh yeah, we got hosed. And so, well, now this is the thing is that as a gay guy, who at the time was in the closet, I would hate that because now there's nothing to look at, and so I, not saying that I looked at anybody. I'm just saying that when the opportunity presented itself, not Graham. I wasn't really super into Graham. So.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
No.
I'm jealous of those bathrooms.
Snuggled. We didn't do anything else.
No.
Like when Alan and I were at Oak Hills, I remember having to like spread my legs like as far as I could to take a piss because there was a piss puddle underneath the urinal.
Yep.
Like 3
Constantly.
feet across. It seemed like so disgusting.
Well, and this is the other part and this is as sad as it gets. Is that I used to be the janitor in the men's dorm, and I did it for like half a semester. And the problem is that the ammonia in urine has caused the glue around the urinals to buckle and pull apart.
Yep.
So that was half glue, half urine.
That's
all
disgusting.
Well, not
just remember, we took saunas in there.
Yeah.
How nasty is that?
Well, you know what? I always sat on a towel because I wasn't sure what I was sitting on those benches. Like I just nope. And even then, I couldn't stay in the sauna for too long because things would come up. Like I just couldn't.
Yeah, we still had the shower parties and everything, and Man, Oak Hills is pretty fucking gay, isn't it?
Oh yeah,
Like,
no,
looking back at it.
I have spent so much time at gay bars, and I talk about college, and I just get these blank stares of like, wait, where was this again? And like, it was Bible college, and they're like,
Yeah.
no, seriously, where was this? No, it was Bible. No, we didn't realize it until afterwards just how gay it was. But I mean, some of my gayest experiences were in Bible college, and this is including now where part of what we do is we go into like gay bars and we we use the term minister, but it's very much the same thing with like go-go boys. And I've gotten to the point where I know go-go boys now who up there dancing in like jockstrap songs, whatever they're into. And I've reached a point now where I may be seeing the same amount of dick in person after being a sister for 4 years as I did at the 5 years I was at Oak Hills. Wow. But it's taken this long of going to gay bars and seeing like, because in the state of Minnesota, there's a law that if you're going to be naked in public, you have to be in an enclosed space. Mm-hmm. So if you've ever been to the Gay 90, Sex World in Minneapolis, or the Saloon, which is the gay bar, is that most of them will have a glass enclosure, like a shower. And as long as they are in the shower and the water's running, they can be nude. That's how Minnesota operates when it comes to our public decency laws. And so even with all the shower contests that I have been to and been in, I have not been nude. I've been in a very tasteful cherry-covered bathing suit. Even with all that, I still saw more dick at Oak Hills. And granted, that was because I had one roommate who was very comfortable being naked. Like that was torture. Because he was
I bet.
Was it Troll?
No.
What's that? No, I did not live with Troll. I won't use his last name. It was Ben.
Oh
yeah.
But this is the funny thing.
We've all seen that.
Yeah. No, he when he found out that I struggled with gay tendencies, he got naked more.
Yeah, I believe it. I believe it.
And at the time, he worked
just to piss you off.
Oh yeah, no, I think he got off on it, which is fine. You know, different strokes for different folks. But when we, while we were living together, he was working at a store in the Bemidji Mall, the Paul Bunyan Mall, and Jim, my husband, was working in the same store. And when Jim talked about being gay and things like that, Ben asked him, "Like, so what kind of guys are you into?" Because I think at that time, Ben was even thinking about hooking me up with guys. Because he would ask me some of the same questions. And oddly enough, I'm into guys like Jim, kind of the twinky, kind of incredible. You all know Jim. Jim's incredibly sarcastic. Jim is kind. Jim is one of the best Christians I know for being an atheist. And for when Ben asked him this question, I'm like, what guys are you into? In Jim's mind, he's screaming, you. And so when Jim and I meet 6-7 years later, I was talking about Ben. He's like, wait, did Ben work at that mall? I'm like, yeah. He's like, and you got to see him naked? I'm like, all the time. He's like, oh yeah, just only a little bit of resentment. So,
oh yeah,
but yeah. So no, that's it. I mean, that's Oak Hills, the gayest place on earth.
Yep.
Right up there with Home Depot and Bemidji.
Yeah, right.
Wait. What's this about Home Depot and Bemidji? I didn't know this.
Oh yeah, Bemidji is full of gays, tons of gays. Yeah, no, I've had friends and acquaintances and friends who were friends for 15 minutes. They that was like prime cruising spots. Like either that's where if you were from Bemidji, you went to the Home Depot, and you went to the bathroom, and there would just be like every once in a while somebody pull a Larry Craig and tap underneath the dividing door. And you'd invite them over. But if you were like a BSU student and just did it at BSU, like no big deal, you'd find the hallway, I think it's between Haig Sauer and Kaufman. That hallway, there's a random spot that went around the corner. That corner.
You talking in the tunnels underneath?
Yes. Because it's Bemidji and yeah.
You're
not going to hook up outside. I mean, unless you have a friend.
So when Johnny and Trevor told you they were looking for their keys, they weren't looking for their keys.
Yeah, no, unless they're keeping in somebody's rectum.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah, and I'm not here to shame anybody. I'm just saying it's like just as long as everybody's consenting and everybody's safe, more power to you.
Absolutely.
You know,
100%. For sure.
yeah.
You brought up
Okay.
the sisters and
Yes.
That's what I was gonna
and
ask.
and all that.
Okay.
So tell us about like where did Tammy come from? What is Tammy's purpose right now?
Sure,
Like
absolutely.
what are you a part of?
Yeah. So my full name is Sister Tammy Gaye Bakery, with the Ladies of the Lakes, which is the Minnesota chapter of the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence. And what the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence is that we're a ragtag gaggle of 21st century nuns. Every sort of movement or religion has always had people who were set aside to minister to the community. And for a lot of the LGBTQ plus community, for the queers that are out there, is that we've been ostracized by the communities that were supposed to take care of us. And so, starting in 1979, the Sisters started off as this kind of group of performance artists who were like at the height of the AIDS crisis saying there needs to be something fun. And so on Easter Sunday, 1979, four dudes got caught up, dressed up in full nun outfits that they had borrowed from a convent for a Sound of Music production and then never returned. And they walked around the Castro district just cracking jokes, smoking cigars, and basically just being ridiculous. And so that continued to grow to the point where they started becoming cheerleaders at gay sporting events. They started going to bars and handing out condoms. The Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence were the first organization to do fundraising for HIV/AIDS causes. Back before anybody was caring about HIV/AIDS, the sisters were at the forefront doing things to make sure that people could get their medication, their rent paid. Even before we knew what was going on, we realized that there was something there that needed to be fundraised for. And since then, it's been growing for the last 44 years. And so we are spread across the world. There's like 55, 56 houses in America. The Minnesota house is one of the biggest. We're certainly the biggest in the Midwest. We're in Canada, Mexico, the UK, France, Germany, Australia, New Zealand, Colombia, all over the place. And
Wow.
so, and really, it's all with the same purpose of promulgating joy and expiating stigmatic guilt. So, where I came in is that I joined the Sisters 3 years ago because um, the hard thing about, I would say, being queer in the world is that oftentimes you go from this set of like life mores and standards. Like before I came out, like I was at Bible college. I was a youth pastor, youth and family minister for 8 years before I came out. I was working at a Baptist church. I was at an evangelical free church. Grandma and I worked at a United Methodist church together. And these were all things where
I was the
surprise.
best man in his hetero wedding.
Yeah, absolutely. You prefer. Yeah, God, I forgot about that. Yeah, yeah. You were the best man at my straight wedding that almost happened, and you were the officiant of my gay wedding. So the hard part with being queer in the world is that oftentimes there's this ostracism that comes with it. And so when at the time I was working, I work for the government. I won't say which branch, which part. It's a local government. And because what I do is dictated by state, federal, and county law, it's not necessarily a job that scratches my do-gooder itch. Like when I was a youth pastor. As a youth pastor, the goal was just to minister to kids, make sure that kids felt loved and appreciated. And part of my job is to do the exact opposite. Part of my day-to-day job is to make sure that you've signed your paperwork, that you've turned it in a timely fashion, that I'm able to process it so that you're able to get the programs that you qualify for. Incredibly mundane, pays quite well, and comes with health insurance. But the hard part is doing good in the world is not part of that job description. And so I had to go find a queer community or a community of faith that would look at me and I would look at them, and I wouldn't have to fall into a specific set of mores or norms or anything like that. I just wanted to do good in the world. I didn't want to have to change the way I dressed, the way I looked, who I had sex with to do those things. I just wanted to do good. And that's where the sisters came in for me, as the idea of We want to spread joy. We want to expiate stigmatic guilt. We're going to fundraise. We're going to just do ridiculous things to really just help people forget for 30 seconds, 5 minutes, the evening, how crappy things can be. And so for us, that's where we came from. And that's why I joined. And at this point now, I'm the mistress of novices, which is essentially the vice president of our nonprofit component. But also my role is to help new junior members, we call them nunlings, to help them figure out what their persona and their role is and help them figure out where do you see yourself in this big picture and what can you do to serve your community beyond look ridiculous.
So, I just have a question about that quick. Are you wearing corpse paint?
Yeah, I'm wearing. It's been nigh. My makeup takes about an hour.
Okay.
So I have 3 or 4 layers on. This is light because since I'm on camera, you can't tell that I'm not wearing my false eyelashes. I have a couple pairs of false eyelashes that I have to glue to my face.
Because right now you would not look out of place at like a death metal show or a black metal show.
Oh yeah. No. And this is the funny thing is that I've had beer spilt on me so many times, and I've been groped so many times. Like, I'm surprised by the number of guys who are into this, which on one hand, I'm flattered. On the other hand, I'm creeped right out. Yeah. It's just like, oh, okay, well, I'm glad that you appreciate my work. Now, please stop grabbing my dick.
Yep.
So I was gonna say, now that you saying like you've been groped in it, that like now I'm starting to think I might know the answer. So the sisters, do you have to be gay to be part of that organization?
No.
Oh,
in fact, in fact, right now our current president is Sister Gaye Day. And Sister Gaye Day is actually a straight woman.
Okay.
So you don't have to be a dude to do it. Our founding members were dudes, but really the intention behind it is that if you're striving to promulgate joy and expiate stigmatic guilt, we want you to participate.
Okay. Can you? The thing that I don't understand is the stigmatic guilt part. I think that's what you said.
Sure.
So I kind of go into like I don't necessarily understand what that like feeling guilty for being gay or like what does that guilt look like?
Really that's kind of where it started, but it's kind of gone from there. Because when you break down the idea of stigmatic and guilt, there are some things that you should feel guilty for. Where the stigma comes in is that the stigmatized things, the things like I have a mental illness, I'm gay, I'm a woman, I'm not fully straight, I'm not fully gay, I'm too fat, I'm too skinny, I'm too butch, I'm too fat. The idea is that there's some things in this world that we're told that we should feel guilty over because we don't measure up to whatever the societal standard is, that in the grand scheme of things is just utter bullshit.
Yeah.
And so that's where the stigmatic part comes into, because when you look at the fact that queerness exists in over 100 different species in documented forms, the fact that we then look at, say, it's like, okay, it exists almost everywhere else in the animal kingdom, but there's no way it can exist in humans because scripture that we've, interpreted over and over and over again over the last 2,000 years says this, even though there are lots of things along the way where we have changed it or we've gotten to know better. Because that was part of why when I went to Bible college, like I knew almost, like I've known since I was in high school that like I was not straight. I didn't quite know if I would say full gay or bisexual or whatever. But by the time I got to maybe my sophomore year of college, I decided that like, okay, I am a big old homo, and but I'm just going to be celibate because that's just the way it is. If I want to be a minister, I'm going to have to be celibate. I can't act on these feelings, blah blah blah. And then oddly enough, it was Gail's class on Bible interpretation, and then the secondary class, advanced hermeneutics. The idea that you would read scripture and you would look at an idea, but then you would look to see what the whole Bible says, not just what one verse is, but what the whole Bible says on the topic. And so for my senior paper, which was only supposed to be like 5 to 8 pages long, I did on the topic of homosexuality, because it was like, all right, well, this is something I should probably know, just because I'm a big old fag myself. But when I started reading through the Bible, when I started looking through the different translations, the commentaries, all these different things, I kept coming back to the fact that when we talk about good exegesis, we talk about what does the Greek say, the Hebrew say, the Aramaic.
When you're bringing me back so much to school.
Oh yeah, when you look at all that structure.
Yeah. Yep.
What I was finding was that in that structure, the word that would describe what I am, a homosexual who is looking for other homosexuals to partner with, that word existed in the ancient Near East, but the practice didn't, because the intention back then was that all of those relationships were supposed to produce children, because that's how you sustained a cultural society. That's how you lived on. You created a dynasty. As much as Jim and I have tried over the last 11 years, we have not had any children. I can't, we've had unprotected sex for over a decade. Still nothing. Here's hoping. But when you look at how, like, let's use the NIV, the most popular translation of the Bible in the world, the New International Version, in 1976, they put the word homosexual in there. Do not lie with a man as you would with another man. Paul talks about homosexuality in Romans. But in 2012, they took it out and changed it back to a closer translation of the word, which had more to do with how do you treat, in the Old Testament, how do you treat prisoners of war? And in the first century, it was about sex cults. It wasn't necessarily about same-sex monogamous just even same-sex relationships. It was just about the idea of, you have this couple over here and they're living their life. And we all know that there's lots of things that the Bible just doesn't mention. We just have to kind of look at principles and say, okay, yeah, this is what it's talking about. The Bible doesn't talk about fast food. It's not something that existed, but we still talk about, like, oh yeah, you know what, being obese, violates the idea of your body as a temple, treated as holy, blah, 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 however you interpret it. And so it's the same very much with the stigmatic guilt part of it, is that as we're looking at, like, okay, there are things that you should feel guilty over because they're just, there's wrong, clubbing a baby seal, while delicious, probably wrong. Slapping a child, depends on what they did. But the reality is that there are things that, because of who we are on a genetic level, it's not necessarily something to feel guilty over.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
That's where that comes from.
I'm really glad that you brought up this stuff about, the exegesis and the hermeneutics, because, like, well, taking it back another step, like, when I was at Oak Hills, I was very conflicted, not about my sexuality like other people there.
Liar.
But more about my own faith and everything, because I grew up, like I was talking about in our mental health episode, I grew up in a very religious town in a crazy, like, what I consider right-wing church, but I never really fit into that whole mold. And then, like, honestly, I don't know if I've ever told you this, Rob, but I can tell you, since the last time I saw you, probably 10 years ago, anytime I talk about my faith, the shining moment of when I was still a Christian always was my conversations with you. Like, I never really had like a super big opinion on on like homosexuality. I just didn't care. I was like, if you're gay, you're gay.
Yeah.
And then I was like, when it came to the Bible, I was like, I don't really understand. But, like, one of the things for me was like, look, one of the people I know that, in my opinion, cares more about God and his faith more than anybody I've ever met in my entire life is big gay.
Oh yeah.
And if somebody like that can't be loved by God, but I can, as much of a shitbag as I am sometimes, then God's probably not real. But no, I think a lot of, I mean, really, I think for as liberal as I am, that all came from Rob, 100%. Like,
oh yeah,
I remember back in the day, like you telling me, like, you're gonna become like a creepy liberal like me and go to the emergent church and all that kind of stuff. But going back to the exegesis thing, like, that's when I really started looking into that more, because I mean, both of my sisters are gay. This isn't something that had was apparent back then, or else we probably would have had a little bit more in common to talk about. But like going back to what you said about like the tribalism and stuff, I always tell people like the Old Testament laws, they were there to set that tribe apart from everybody else. Not so much a morality law as much as a cleanliness, keep yourself separate law. And so like if you look in like a lot of like real like primitive tribes now, like they're still going into other villages and the men are raping the other men as a sign of dominance.
Yeah.
So I think what you're saying about the loving monogamous relationship, it's not mentioned. That wasn't something that was really a thing back then, you know. And so that's kind of like people just trying to use an ancient text to kind of solidify their prejudices now. But are you still a Christian, Rob?
I am.
Yeah.
I would say that the way I would describe my Christianity is actually, it goes back to Gibb, the theology professor. He said something, one of the few things I remember, because oddly enough, I took a class from him in the afternoon, the writings of John. And I did way better. I passed it on the first time. But he said something that has stuck with me for the last 20 years. And it's the idea that God is higher than the highest thought that can be thought.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that stuck with me because in the grand scheme of things, I realized that humanity's role is to try. When we talk about the Bible, the things that stick out to me are the ones that are really direct commands. So like seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these other things will be added onto you. Great. The idea is that you're striving for something, not that you've like, all right, I've made it, I'm good. Give me my Christian gold star so now that I can start judging other people. No, that's completely not the intention. You know, we all had to pick, a life first. I don't know if any of you still remember them. I still have mine. I'm still debating whether you're getting a tattoo of it, which I think would be funny. But it's Micah 6:8. He has shown thee, O man, what is good and what does the Lord require of you, but to do justice, love mercy, and to walk humbly with God. And that's pretty straightforward. I mean, the intention is that mercy, justice, walking humbly. I don't think God ever intended for something like the religious right to become the norm.
Right.
And so even I think the hard part is that when we start mixing up Christianity or whatever faith system there is with the idea of Christendom or a caliphate or whatever tribal kingdom that you happen to participate in, the idea is that it stops being about the creator, the sustainer, and the idea that we're all in this together and we're trying to strive towards creating kingdom on earth, and it becomes conversion by the sword.
Yeah.
Like, okay, you disagree with me, that's fine, I'm just going to chop off your head. Like, we see that American history and just really global history is filled with that idea. You can, like, even now, like going back to even saying ISIS, like that's essentially what it was, is you disagree with us on these issues within our religious faith, so therefore you should die. We can see the same thing even with like the Old Testament, where we see in Deuteronomy and Joshua and Judges, where the Jewish kingdom comes in and slaughters the citizens of Canaan. That's what they did, because that was part of that historical narrative. That's what you did. Same with Christianity spreading around the world, Islam, Buddhism, Hinduism, all these major regions of the world, just religion in the world. That's just what we do, is that we carry this tribal mentality of us versus them, and them always being wrong. And even for people of non-faith, it's not like Stalin was known for his human rights. Neither was Chairman Mao. It's that I believe, like, this is where, because I remember listening to your podcast about the idea of like millennial versus Gen X versus Boomer. I'm technically a Gen X, but there's still lots of things about the millennial mindset that I enjoy. I really do hope for the best in the world as a millennial. I think that we have the power within us to change it. The Gen X for me says, but humans are shit, so it's not really worth doing.
Yeah.
And so for my faith, that's kind of where my faith is the idea of like Dave Matheson would say, who I think was gone by the time you two got there, but was there for Graham. He was the pastoral teacher. He was the New Testament teacher, but he taught Revelations and end time literature. And so he would get asked every year, it's like, oh, are we living in the end of days? And his response every time was, "Well, I think we're closer today than we were yesterday." Like he had a doctorate. That was his best answer.
That's a good response.
And
that's
it
the
is
best
a good
you
response.
could say.
Yeah, it's that the idea that we can look at our faith systems regardless of what they may be, but we have to evaluate them and say, all right, is this about bettering the world around me, or is this about bettering me? And if all it is you're bettering yourself, then what's the point?
Yeah.
So
I seem to recall you saying something back in the day. I think one of your main points you always said when we'd be talking is something about like you just really believe your job is to love. I'm pretty sure you said that. And that's also something that I've thought about since then. Even without having a faith anymore at all. I mean, I guess I'm like basically like a agnostic / Unitarian / Universalist kind of person. So thanks for that, Rob.
No problem. Here to help. Sending people to hell one day at a time.
But like that's kind of always been my thing is like, I mean, if you're not loving people, you're not doing anything good. And so you're not going to ever change anything, or you're never going to go anywhere if you're unable to love other people.
Yeah.
And so that's huge.
And I think that's what's crazy. So here's to the testament of Tammy, to the testament of Rob, right? Is that like that's been that power, I think that main topic that anybody will say if someone says, well, how do you know Rob? It's those deep, fun conversations and unconditional love, no matter where the conversation leads, for 20 years. I mean, like that's what it is for me. Like Rob and I have been through so many different dynamics.
Yeah.
But it's all been like just pure, and there's not a lot of pure people in the world, and Rob is one of the purest.
Well, thank you.
Absolutely.
I'll remember that the next time I'm getting bum fucked.
just don't call me.
Well, if I call you, I feel like my husband might leave me. Like would be a bad idea.
Jim is like, the bear is not coming around anymore.
Yeah, no. We're closing it down. The store is closed. So, but I think that but that even comes up to that idea is that I was very fortunate because I didn't realize how fortunate I was until I got older and got to Oak Hills actually. The fact is that the church I grew up in, because I didn't grow up in a Christian family. I grew up in I grew up in a Christian family, but it was very nominal. My mom raised us kind of Catholic. My dad kind of raised us Lutheran because this is Minnesota and that's law. But while I was in middle school, I started attending an evangelical free church, which has over time become a bit more of the conservative religious right sort of thing. But I happened to be there at this time where our pastor and our youth pastor had been there for a long time and wanted to be there for a long time, with their intention being we talk through the Bible, but we talk about it through the context of if God is love and God wants us to grow and God wants us to love the world so that the world can grow, this is how we're viewing scripture. This is our worldview. And so when I got to Oak Hills, to me, God was never this judgmental being who's going to smite you. God was this loving being who said, I love you enough to not leave you the way that you are. And to me, that was something that really impacted the way I was, because when I got to Oak Hills and started meeting people who were raised in really quite toxic environments between family and faith communities, who were like, to be a good Christian is a mathematic formula. It's not that. It's never been that. We try to make it that, but that's not it. If it was a mathematical formula, it would be the 10 Commandments. Do these 10 things and you'll be fine. Well, we know that doesn't work because that's where the book of Deuteronomy comes in. We add in actually these laws because humans like to make things complicated, and our joy of making it simple, we make it worse. And I think that when I got to Oak Hills and the number of people I was shocked by who were like, oh yeah, no, I love my pastor, I love my youth pastor, I love my church. And even now, what have been spring 2019, I think it was, my cousin, who lives in my hometown, was in her last show choir performance. And so my aunt told Jim and I, like, let's go, it's fun. The Hastings Show Choir always puts on an amazing show, all these national awards, blah, blah, blah. So Jim and I went. And so while we were there, we ran into my youth pastor, Glenn. And so I introduced Glenn to my husband, and and Glenn's wife came over, and like these are the people who were the most stable force in my life for well over 30 years. And we have lost touch recently, but we've started like talking again. Um, but in that conversation, there was never a time where I felt Glenn was judging me or condemning me for uh being married to a dude. I could still tell that after all these years, Glenn still loved me and still believed that God would want me to be saved from homosexuality, and that's fine because that's an agreement disagreement that we can have, because you can disagree with people, um, until it starts getting legislating your moralities into the law. Anyway, that's a different topic. But it's that idea of I never felt like he was judging me for that. He was just Glenn being loving and still asking questions. He was asking about my family. And it turns out that his youngest son was in the show choir with my cousin. And so they knew each other without realizing that I was a connecting point. And so we sat and chatted and had this great time. And Jim did a great time with talking with Glenn. And I've been talking about Glenn for 30 years. And so Jim knew everything.
Yeah.
Youth group trips, driving to, we always drove, we never flew anywhere. So driving to Atlanta, Salt Lake City, New Orleans, all over the country with Glenn. And that's where, for me, I got to see that modeled behavior of, I want to hear about you, because I recognize that in listening to you and using active listening and recognizing that my role is not to judge. That's the job of the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit's role is to convict people of their behavior, not for me to point my finger at you and say, well, you know what? If you were a better person, you wouldn't have XYZ going wrong in your life. That's not my role. That's never been my role. And that's because that was instilled in me. So when I got to Oak Hills, having conversations with people and just being like, all right, well, I know that I'm a big old fag and you guys keep waving your dick in my face. And that's like, all right, I'm not going to complain, but someday this is going to be real uncomfortable for you. And so when I got to that point where, like, even now, it's like all the stuff here, when I got into the bars and I'm talking with people, the reality is that all this crap, I'm still doing my youth ministry stuff.
Yep.
All the stuff that I'm doing now, it's because the queer community has been ostracized by so much of the world that part of my job sometimes is just being a good youth pastor and just listening to you talk about whatever is going wrong. Granted, it might be with some guy in a G-string with dollar bills hanging out his ass crack, and that's fine. That's not my job. My job is to love and to listen and to be an affirming voice to say, and this is how I end all the videos I make. If you want to follow me on Facebook, I read stories.
Yeah, we're definitely going to put your link up there for sure.
Oh, thank you. So really, the way I end my videos is that you are, just remember, you are loved, you are appreciated, and your presence is needed in this world. And I fully believe that, because that's what was instilled in me, is that if we are put here for a purpose and a reason, whatever that purpose or reason may look like, it's there on purpose, whatever it is. It's, I never wanted to be the next Billy Graham, but I really did want to be the next Billy Graham's youth pastor. Yeah. And that's kind of always been my goal. It's like now it's not necessarily, well, I don't necessarily want to be like, RuPaul's Drag Race winner season 15, but I'd like to be that person's friend and to be the one who encouraged them and help them with whatever, because if you are not actively striving to make the world a better place, then shut up and go over there because you're getting in my way.
So true. So with everything that you're doing and the sisters are doing, and the kind of the time that we live in, where the millennials, let's say, are really kind of pushing the envelope on everything, right? Like everything's okay. How do you feel about judgment, understanding, care, growth, and movement with the LGBT community then? In the time we live now, especially that you're nearing, you're at your midlife, coming to your midlife.
Thanks.
So well, I'm there. They make fun of me all the time because I'm ancient, but being that you've you've
The
lived.
fact that my knees are making noise as I go up the stairs.
Yeah. I was with you a couple of weeks ago. It was bad.
Yes, it was. It was a symphony going up the stairs.
Yeah. So, but with all that's going on, these changes that could possibly be prevalent, like we see a lot of movements, right? Like, and movements can last, and movements can just fiddle away really quick, right? How do you feel that within your community, with where we are now in the world, how are things going?
Yeah,
let's say our world, not let's say the States, not the world, because the world's like messed up. Even we're just as messed up
in the States. Okay. Yeah, I think individual communities. I'll use the word tribes because that seems to be kind of that's the
he's taking away my word, Matt.
Oh, sorry. When it comes to the tribal aspects of communities, the idea is that I find identity within this collective group of people, whether it's socioeconomic at the country club, whether it's sexual orientation at the gay bar, or if it's a faith system at a church, mosque, or synagogue. Mm-hmm. That gives you that sense of belonging and that sense of purpose. And there's nothing wrong with having the belonging and the purpose. The hard part is that when the belonging, the sense of purpose starts turning into the conviction and the annihilation of other people. I think that's where the hard part perhaps is with, like, say, cancel culture, is that humanity is, I'm trying to find the way I'm going to put this. People are a lot more complicated than we want to give them credit for. I'm a big believer in the idea that most people are ignorant, not malicious.
True.
We don't. Yeah, mm-hmm. And so I'm the next step of that is that when you know better, you do better. And so if you know better but still choose to actively go against that, well, now you're just being a dick. Mm-hmm. And so when we're talking about even within the younger generation versus older generation, things like that, is that there's nothing wrong, even within those intergenerational relationships, is that because we were, for us, we all kind of raised in that generation of respect your elders, what they say goes. We can point to Bible verses that talked about, Proverbs saying, stand in the presence of your elders. That was Greg Giles, one of his favorite ones to use in Bible Interp the first time I took it, was because it was the idea that, because that was at 9 a.m., is that you can take any verse and make it say what you want it to say when you take it out of context.
Oh yeah.
And I think that the difference is now is that you can see some of the same things happening now with, like, a tweet. We've taken this one little snippet and said, okay, this is what this person believes 100% of the time, 100% to the max.
Like, we're letting it define their personality.
Yeah, you're letting it define their personality. Yeah. Now, there's a difference is that if you go through and read through the tweets and you're like, oh yeah, no, this is a consistent theme. And like, okay, yeah, this person's just garbage. And maybe they should be ostracized because the reality is that they have been talked to about these behaviors. They have been talked to about why what they're saying is hurtful, misogynistic, racist, xenophobic, homophobic, whatever phobic term you want to use. I'm not even a big fan of that word, but just being unkind, for lack of a better term. I think that you have to take those things with, like, as a holistic approach. And we don't want to do that. When I say we, I mean humans, because that takes work. And it requires getting to know a person to say, okay, now I know you. Now I know you're garbage, versus thinking you were before, compared to, like, okay, now that I've gotten to know you, oh, I see where you're coming from, and I see why we disagree, and that's okay.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, it kind of reminds me of, like, when you're talking about communities and, like, each of those people groups, it kind of reminds me, like, kind of like, it's like my view of, like, different religions, but I think it still applies. Is like everybody's their own single pane of a stained glass window, but they're unwilling to take a look back and see that they're all part of a bigger picture together. And like everybody being together is what really makes the whole beautiful image, not just that one small piece of glass.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well,
sorry, Graham, I cut you off.
Whoa, profound. Dang, Matt. No,
yeah. That one I don't think I did. I didn't come up with it either. I think I read it in some Unitarian book.
Oh, probably. Yeah. The analogy that I use is that or that I used that I heard from a Unitarian minister friend of mine was that truth exists outside of this structure that humanity is in. And your perception of truth is based off of the window that you're looking out.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're looking to the east, north, west, south, skylights, basement windows, even though everything around you is still technically the outside world, your perception of what the outside world is based off of the window that you're looking out.
Yeah. Could you tell me what Numa video that's from?
Yeah.
Leave Rob Bell out of this.
Oh man.
I love Rob Bell. I'm just kidding.
Oh, he's totally tight. Too bad he's straight.
Yeah.
Well, and so
that's great.
And so yeah, I think that's kind of the part too, is that I think with all these new tools for people to be nasty, right? It for me, not within the community, but supportive of the community and other, whether it's race or whatever, you see like I keep seeing these opportunities where you're like, oh, we're just there, right? We're just there at the acceptance part. We're just there at like being like not a big deal, right? Like whoop-de-doo.
Yeah.
Like just being human, like people just accepting humans as humans and loving on people. Like there's, we're always going to have nastiness, but there's this mainstream part where you're like, mainstream, we're just almost there. And then a tweet happens or a meme happens or a YouTube video or something that just kind of comes back out and like brings you back to reality that now we're still shit. We're still trash people. We're still a hurting world that may never, ever get that window cleaned off. Right.
Yeah.
And it really, but it goes down looking at your community too, right? If you can be around those people that support you, then you have that opportunity to continue to grow that, right? Yeah. To continue to bring new people in here. So like even here tonight, having you on the podcast, there might be somebody out there be like totally against who you are. But thank God, one, you're freaking intelligent.
Thank you.
And two, that love is shined through you no matter what you're wearing and what lens we're looking through, right? Like the way you speak is loving and caring and you're intelligent, and that's going to bring somebody else into your community.
Yeah.
And I think that's the goal, is like to be happy, to be that minister that you're trying to be to people. These are those opportunities, and everything that you do in your life is that opportunity, whether you're Rob or whether you're Tammy. You have that opportunity to build that community and make people see through that window a little bit better, more clearly.
Well, thank you for that metaphysics hand job. I really appreciate it.
Ooh. You're welcome.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I won't tell your wife. It's okay. Well, it's that idea of.
I've done worse.
I know. I was there for some of it. It's old cliche, and I love it because it gets overused. It's that idea of, it's better to build a longer table than it is to build a higher wall.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's something that it's easier said than done, because again, it requires that intentional effort and that intentional work of getting to know people that you don't necessarily know. And I think that there are times where social media or just the digital conversations sometimes gives a false sense of community. Because and I think I talked to Grandma about this a couple of years ago. It would have been 2019. Yeah, because I was living in St. Paul at the time. The Moms Demand Gun Action Coalition had a protest at the state capitol.
Yep.
I live less than a mile away from the capitol.
I was just going to bring this one up.
Yeah, and so the sisters and I were like, "Oh, you know what? That's a really good idea. We'll go. We'll be supportive of this rally. It's something we believe in." And so we went. Now, with that being said, I have to give this caveat about myself. I'm not anti-gun. I'm anti getting shot in the mall.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up in a family of hunters. sportsmen, clay pigeons,
Plus, you're a little bit redneck like the rest of us.
Oh yeah, I really, really am. I mean, like if when I go to the cabin, like my redneck comes out. I mean, like hee-hawing, four-wheeling, day drinking, all the redneck things are right there, blowing shit up with fireworks, shooting guns.
Yep.
It's there.
Oh yeah.
Yep. There's nothing wrong with that aspect of the culture. The problem is that until we deal with the issues surrounding gun violence, these things are going to just keep happening.
Yep.
And when you don't do anything and things just keep happening, then you can't be surprised that people point out, like, well, we need to do something. Well, I don't know. There's nothing you can do. Bullshit. There's lots of things we can do. And so I was at this rally, and the color of the t-shirts that they had was like red. So I wore my red dress, my happy little hat, my kicky little heels. And we went to the rally. Like I got my picture taken with a bunch of politicians who happened to be DFL, the lieutenant governor, all these people, because we don't get dressed up like this just to blend in. And so I got a couple of people who took my picture and took a picture of all of us as individuals and as groups and things like that. And then it got turned into a pro-gun meme, and we were called left-wing extremists or gun control nuts who were striving to take away your guns. And it was like the Minnesota gun rights group or something, the guy from this Facebook group. And this meme then got shared by Ted Nugent.
Yep.
Who shared it across his social media platform. And this is my picture. Like it was like these Minneapolis gun control people want to take away your guns. A, I was in St. Paul, and B, I looked good. I looked wonderful in this picture. The lighting was nice. I had a good smile. It was fabulous. It was my Facebook profile for a while. But this meme got shared all over.
Yep.
And to the point where my mom saw it and called me like the day after this rally saying, you need to burn this dress. You need to change your name. You need to do this, 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 and this. And so I found it on Ted Nugent's profile and just comment after comment after comment after comment about how I should die.
Yeah.
I need a piece of lead to my brain. I need this. Oh, I'm a sick, twisted bastard. This is, he's into kids, like which is not true. Jim is 7 years older than me, and I kind of have a thing for daddies. And so we had all this stuff going on, and it was just death threat after death threat after death threat. My social media got flooded with it.
Yeah.
People just coming after Tammy, and because they were able to see pictures of Rob on some of our social media platforms, they found my personal profile and my personal Instagram and started sending death threats that way. And now, in the grand scheme of things, I recognize that as someone who's been a mental health practitioner off and on for the last, 15 years, the grand scheme of things, the people who make those comments aren't always the ones that you want to be worried about.
Yeah.
Because chances are it's bluster. It's the ones who don't make the comments that you need to be worried about. And so I had to put all my social stuff on lockdown. I had to screen all this stuff. I had to contact Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, and send them screenshots of all these death threats I was getting and saying, all right, does this violate your community standards? Oddly enough, nipples violate Facebook's community standards. Death threats do not.
Yep.
Yeah.
I can see that.
Which is a different conversation.
That's because the Zuck is afraid of nipples.
Yeah, which is perfectly fine. I'm not going to yuck his yum. That's fine. Because it is a private company and that's the way that operates. I didn't know who any of these people were. It was never a conversation. It was just a meme that I got turned into a meme, and was just death threats after death threats. Like my mom even got a couple of private messages because my mom was somehow connected to my personal page. It was just like, your son is an abomination to God and man, and then thankfully my sister caught them first and deleted them before my mom could read them. But for myself, I found this hysterical. I thought it was just the stupidest, most ridiculous thing ever. I'm like, you have taken 5 minutes out of your day to write this poorly worded, bad spelling, poor grammar statement about how I deserve to die. And all I could think is, you live in the middle of bumfuck Colorado You know where St. Paul is? You think I'm in Minneapolis. Do you realize where I am?
And you're like, oh
And
God, the American education system has failed you.
yeah, no, it's just like, okay, well, Americans can't find America on a map, so that's fine, whatever. They're not going to find St. Paul, whatever. But like I've kind of had this philosophy. It's not necessarily a Bible cliche. Really, I'm a believer in the idea that unless you suck my dick or pay my bills, I don't have to listen to you.
Yep.
Fair.
Well, and it's crazy too, because for a lot of people in that situation, when someone of status like a Ted Nugent, in that realm, Ted Nugent doesn't have a lot of status anymore. But
I
in
was
that,
stuck with that kid now.
yeah. But in the gun toting realm, right? He's very top of the marquee there, and for him to go out and do that, which was a big statement, huge statement, and that Matt actually just sent us the Facebook post that Ted Nugent did.
Found it.
Yeah,
real quick.
Yeah. We'll put a blip. We'll put that blip up on our thing there.
I look great
because Rob looks great.
Yeah,
I gotta say, the scowl on your face is what makes it.
I know, like because there's a few of them, and it just
that's seriously amazing.
And I remember the photographer, and the photographer is cute. Oh, I was so disappointed.
But I think, I think for you to go through that and like be unscathed by it, because that is a big deal, right? Like people lose their shit over smaller things. And that was a big deal. And I remember going through those and talking to my wife, and like I was almost in tears about like what people were saying, because I'm like, that's my family.
Yeah.
Like, and instantly that keyboard warrior wanted to come out of me and just be like, fuck you, like go to town on people. But understanding that, okay, these are just idiots. They know absolutely nothing what's going on. They don't know my friend. And for you to be you and just go through that, scathed, right? Like there's obviously some things that bother you there, but your statement of, you're not sucking my dick or paying my bills, I ain't gonna listen to you. Having that mentality and be able to go through that, it's a pretty big deal, because a lot of people wouldn't be able to do that. They wouldn't understand.
Well, that's part of what the sisters do as a whole, is that we look like this and we do what we do because then it gives the haters of the world a target. And it's an easy target because we're easy to find. But it gives us to the point where a lot of us have received death threats in a variety of ways. Mine just happened to be on Facebook and shared by Ted Nugent, which made me feel like I have arrived.
Which I think it's funny looking at it, Rob, because he calls you anti-human and a buffoon and a devil.
Yeah.
And a freak.
And the first version, he spelt buffoon wrong.
Yeah. Yep.
And it's like, that's fine. I mean, really, it's Ted Nugent's not, Ted Nugent's probably more my type than a kid is. Just throwing it out there. But I think that when you look at how Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and all these formats, Discord, whatever, has allowed people to have more interactions, both good and bad, where there is a way to build intentional community, but there's also a way to tear people down just because you're bored.
Yeah.
And it's this idea, this fallacy that everybody's entitled to my opinion. No, they're not. Because the reality is that there's a difference between an informed opinion and an opinion. I've worked in nonprofit work and government work now for my entire adult life. I can have opinions about food stamps because I've seen the ramifications of that work. I can also have an opinions on the Super Bowl today. The grand scheme of things, I don't know enough about Super Bowl or football as a whole, beyond the fact that I know that the commercials are the best part. Like, that's how I feel. Like,
you should know a little bit about football. You used to watch the Vikings games with me and Matt.
Do you realize that the Vikings team has white pants and dark jock straps? Yeah.
There's always an alternative motive.
I hate to break it to you, Alan. I know enough to know that.
Hence why I only come over when you just get out of the shower, too.
Yeah. And it's also because Matt's wife is a pretty good cook. But that's a big part of it, is that I have an opinion about football, but it's not going to be as informed as the opinion about somebody like my brother-in-law, who like follows statistics
Oh
and
God.
talks about chances. He's really into it. And he does very well in the fantasy football league because that's his hobby. That's what he does. And so I think that sometimes the hard part is that and I think this is a pretty American idea, or at least a Western world idea. The fact that we think that our opinion has so much value that everybody needs to hear it all the time.
So that's what we did. That's why we started a podcast.
Yeah, but the difference is that you're not scolding people for not listening to it.
Yeah.
I mean, your wives don't even listen to it yet.
No.
Yeah, and that's fine.
No, yeah.
So
mine doesn't for sure.
Yeah, and Graham's wife is busy raising their children. I'm just throwing it out there. I mean, if you're up to it, there's a good bar down here, the Eagle. All three of you would get drink spot for you all night long.
Oh, I'm into it.
I always tell the guys that. Like, I go to the gay bars because I never pay for a drink.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I'd go to a gay bar any day of the week.
Oh yeah.
Like even if somebody was just
stronger.
Oh, I bet.
Oh yeah.
I would even be mad. If somebody was just like came up and like smacked my ass or like grabbed my junk or something, like, hey man, I appreciate that you think I'm hot. I'm not really into it, like, but I mean, I definitely appreciate it.
That's too long of a conversation.
Fair.
Your butt would have been your dick at that point.
Yeah. But it depends on the bar. It depends on the night. So, but yeah, I think that's, I mean, a big part of it is that if we don't strive to build intentional community, regardless of what that community looks like, whether it's through social media, physical presence, well, which we can't right now because of COVID, but through intentional acts, then that community doesn't just happen. Like, community has to be intentionally built. As much as we will complain about it, there was a point to Community Life Hour at Oak Hills. There was a point.
Never went.
Yeah. Exactly.
Sign and scram.
Sign and scram. Yeah. But there's a point to stuff like that. There is an intentional purpose of those things. Small groups, whatever it is that those things exist for a reason. And regardless of your faith proclivities, you can still take those practices and those ideas and say, okay, if I want, just using Graham as an example, if I want my kids to be raised by people who love them and care for them, and these are the people that I want them to have regular contact with, because this is going to make them into good people. Because that's the point of parenting. The point of parenting is to raise good adults. They don't have to be stellar. They don't have to be the next president. They just have to not be a mass murderer.
Yep.
And so part of that is to then intentionally become friends with people who you want around your kids, who show their kids. It's like, because this is my youth pastor days, is that kids don't care what you know until they know you care. And so if I don't, there may be times where I'm looking at some 5-year-old kid's drawing of a horse that looks more like a dragon or like a house. I still have to say, you know what, that's really neat. You look like you spent a lot of time on that. So that 10 years later, when that kid says, oh, yeah, well, you know what, I think my girlfriend's pregnant. Okay, well, let's have a conversation about that. Why do you think that? What's going on? Have you talked to your parents? Because if they don't trust you with the small stuff, they're not going to trust you with the big stuff. And if you don't build those intentional communities, because it's like, there are times where Graham and I have had a conversation about his kids, and my response is, why would your children talk to you about that? You're the dad. You're the cool dad, but you're still the dad. They're not going to talk to you about that.
Yep.
And that's okay, because they're talking to me about that, or they're talking to, Jay or somebody else. They're having that conversation with another adult that you've brought into their life that you trust. And that's what an intentional community should be, because before, social media, before the Industrial Revolution, your community was oftentimes the people that you were already related to.
Yeah.
You'd have this small farming community, and it's like, oh yeah, this is my, we'd all be Amish. But the intention behind it was that the community was intentionally structured to care for the community. And because that's something that's kind of gone the way of the dodo, we're realizing what we're actually missing, and we're trying to rebuild that. But we're trying to rebuild that in the 21st century, and the structure of that has to be different, because we can't just all pull a new monastic society like Sean Claiborne or Solomon's
Yes, we
Porch.
can.
We can. As long as it has a good Wi-Fi signal so I can work from home, that's okay.
Fair.
That's still doable, but the logistics of like saying, okay, how do we do that then with, a property big enough to hold us? And how do we handle things like, at what point in time should I stop yelling at your children? And how do we still create a sense of community that doesn't turn into a cult? Because that's oftentimes why people go to cults, is this is a sense of acceptance and community. I need to go be with these people. Surprise, I had to drink Kool-Aid.
Yeah. Well, I think that's another good point that you bring up. So like all of our podcasts has run into the conversation of community.
Yeah.
And which makes me smile, because that's very much like my identity is knowing people that can in your life that can cook, people that can weld, people that can work on cars, people that can grow, fix clothes, things like that. And you bring up the other point that I know, but I never ever expressed and never like even thought about in depth is not only that people that could be looked like as a commune, right? Like you said, a cult, but you also have those spiritual people in your life. You have those people that, if I die, who are my kids going to? Or where's Uncle Rob? Where's Uncle Matt? Where's Uncle Alan? Like these people that you bring into these, like, I don't know how many of my friends, Uncle Graham, like all their kids are Uncle Graham to me.
That's what my kids say.
Yep. And that's that sense of trust and connection there that is a part of that community that we don't always think about too. And it's so like, good to bring that in there, because that really helps, like, for me at least, realize like that community is not just within your physical reach. It is all over, because we have those people all over the nation. I have people all over the country that I'm like, that's Uncle this. You go to them if you need that, and I think it's good thing to continue to build those, because a lot of people, like you said, it's hard in this time, like where we have so much connectiveness, that we're still so disconnected. And we even find that within ourselves, right? Like me and Matt, we hadn't talked for a long time. Alan and I, sometimes we don't talk for a long time. Rob and I, sometimes we don't talk for a long time, but I always realize, like, no matter what, we're there, even though we're like so connected, or could be,
Yeah.
Good.
Well, that's where that intentionality comes in.
Yep.
That regardless of your gender, age, orientation, marital status, is that when we're looking to strive to build that community, because we recognize that's where the most growth happens for a lot of individuals, not for everybody, but for a lot, is that there has to be that idea of what can I contribute and what am I receiving? And I think that's still why, because you see the article every couple of years, generally around Christmas or Easter. Why are churches shrinking? Or why are churches growing? Why this? Why that? Why are millennials leaving the church? A big part of it is the idea that the intentional community growth for a lot of denominations has kind of broken down as people have retired, or has gone away as people have moved. And so a part of what makes communities work is that there are people who are actively working to build it. And that's part of the role for the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence, is that we perceive ourselves as being kind of the cocktail waitresses of the world. Our role is to make people feel welcomed, to make people feel accepted, to introduce people, to help people realize that they're not alone. One of my favorite memories as a sister is we were performing at a gay bar. We do this, a few times a year. We do drag shows. I did a song by Rachel Bloom called "Pictures of Your Dick." If you don't know it, I suggest you go see it. Essentially, what it is that this woman and her ex have broken apart, and in her complete mess of a life, she decides that what she needs to do is to take the dick pics that he has sent her, and spoiler alert, she posts them in the neighborhood with the term "lost dick."
All right.
Yeah, and so I did this song. And so this young man who I was A, attracted to, but B, was also like, are you legal to be here? Said, he's like, I appreciated the song. And then I started talking to him. It was his first time ever in a gay bar. He was there by himself. and he was not even fully out of the closet yet. He was actually from northern Minnesota, so he and I were able to have conversations about stuff. And he was going to the U of M, and he was a freshman, so it was like, wow, must be like a really overwhelming kind of scary experience for you. So let me introduce you to some of my friends. And so I introduced him to some of my friends who had come to see me perform. Jim was there, and they chatted, and it gave him a space where he could sit at a table and chit chat with people who were going to be kind.
Yeah.
Because that's the kind of people that I've built my community out of. The reason that I keep Jim around is not because of his dick sucking ability or any of his other skills in the bedroom or the kitchen or the living room or the basement or the tent or the camper. It is because, and you've all met him. Jim is incredibly kind.
Yep.
Yeah. Jim's awesome.
And Jim is the kind of guy that you want to be around because Jim is really good at building people up. And so that's why I keep him around. The extracurricular activities are a major bonus. But the fact that we've intentionally surrounded ourselves with people who are kind, who call us on our bullshit when we need it to be, and who help us become better people. Those are the people that we want to be around because we realize that's how we become better people. And so dumping off this stranger with them and saying, hey, this is his first time in a gay bar. This is so-and-so. This is my husband. This is my friend Derek. This is my friend Ton. This is my friend Amanda. This is my friend Jeremy. Jeremy's straight. And you just say, like, here you go. That's it. And they just sat and chatted with them, and they had fun.
Yep.
And so when I saw him later on at a different gay bar, he thanked me because he enjoyed himself there. So now he was branching out, and he had come with another friend, and he was there for his birthday. And so I told the drag queen, like, I want to buy a shot for him for his birthday, blah, 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 blah. And that intentional community work, like, now, to me, I don't remember his name. Yeah. I remember what he looked like because I was checking out his butt and his front, just throwing it out there. I'm married, not dead. And
I could read his jeans, but not his face.
That's right. Yes. He might have been blonde. I don't remember. And so.
But those are surely 55.7s.
Yes. Size 28, 30. And so a part of it was that he remembered me and he remembered the experience that he had. That's oftentimes what a good community builder can do. Is that the idea is that you recognize that there's a way for people to feel connected and belong, because for those who don't feel a sense of connection, those who don't feel a sense of community, it's very easy to find a toxic community.
Yeah.
Because a toxic community just wants the followers. They don't want the intentional quality growth. They just want the followers. And so that's where I think sometimes as a society and I just say Western world, is that's sometimes what we fall into the trap of. Oh, I have this many Instagram followers, or oh, I have this many friends on Facebook. Okay, Mazel tov. Like, are they good people? Like, how many of them build you up? Like, how many of them have contributed to the betterment of your world? And you, and in turn, have contributed to the betterment of their world.
Yeah.
Because if it's just like, okay, it's just a pure numbers game, then all right. And so my sister has a couple of teenage girls, and that's something I try to instill in them, is the idea of you don't want the quantity, you want the quality. You can have quantity with quality, but you still need to make sure that the people that you're surrounding yourself with are building you up, and they're working towards bettering themselves and bettering you. And I'm amazed. Like, I forgot from my days as a youth pastor just how terrible teenage girls are.
Oh, yeah.
And so I don't work with that demographic anymore in my job, but there are times where I'm at gay pride events and I see these teenagers, and they never want to have a picture with me right away, but it always takes that one really bold, gay boy who's like, oh, I love your glitter. Can I have a glitter? Yeah, come on up for a picture. That's fine. We love taking pictures of people. And as soon as that one little proud gay boy does it, the rest of them just flock to us, and lots of pictures for Instagram and Facebook and Twitter and Discord and all these other things that I've never heard of before because I'm a boomer when it comes to technology.
So with all that to be said, here's the deal with Rob. we could talk to you forever. And you're gonna be back on the show because there's a lot of topics to talk about. Whether
I'll bring Jesus with me next time.
Make sure you save room for Jesus.
We should definitely have Rob on for our religious talk, so we can all kind of be out of it here. What are some things that you are working on now, and things that that we can help advertise for you, or at least get out there and spread the word of things that you're going to be doing?
Well, nothing because of COVID. Really,
not a lot of in-person things right now.
Yeah. Really, we're striving to improve our digital outreach, and one of the big shows that we have coming up, and you can find the Ladies of the Lakes on Facebook, Instagram, and I think we have a Twitter, and we do have a YouTube. It's this Ladies of the Lakes in Minnesota. There's 2 different groups. One is the nuns. The other one is a group of soccer moms from Lake Minnetonka. Go for the drag. Go for drag. We have a show coming up at the February 21st, I believe it is. I will have to check the specifics, but it's called Tasha's Intergalactic Takeover, or TIT for short. It's a space-themed fundraiser that we're raising money for the scholarship fund. Our goal is to create a scholarship fund where we can put grants, like micro grants, out into the community to do good work based off of one of the things that we've done before is because we're the Twin Cities, we have a very currently just a really rampant homeless population issue.
Yep.
And so one of the things we did this year was we gave money to someone who had developed a really good rapport with this collection of unhoused people in Minneapolis. And they had really developed relationships with them, and we're soliciting the community for money and for assistance. And so we basically just said, we've got $500 for you. Tell us what we can do with this money for you. What can we do for you? And so we created these basically homeless kits of socks, gloves,
cool,
protein bars, bottled water, high energy snacks, non-perishable food items, toilet paper, the hand warmers from hunting, stuff like that we put together. And so because we haven't been doing any public shows, which is where we get a vast majority of our money, we've been trying to do more digital shows over Zoom, Instagram Live, Facebook Live. And so that's our next show coming up. Excuse me. And so we will be putting that together. Our goal is to raise $1,000 so that we can basically put it right back into the community. Almost 100%. I think it's we did the math one time. 99.5% of the money we raise goes right back into the community.
Cool.
That 0.5% basically pays for our PO box, which we're required to have as a 501c3, and our website.
Good.
We as individuals try to cover the rest of what we have, the posters, stuff like that. A lot of the crap that I build because I have no children and I have disposable income. So, although if you send your children my way, I'll put them to work painting dicks. That's really how it's going to go. I mean, really, I have a yardstick that was made for me, because I'm a nun and that's what we do. But that's really the cusp of what we do. And so we do those things at pride events. We do those things in bars.
Nice.
We do those things at gun rallies. Jim and I went to Iceland 2 years ago for our honeymoon, and Tammy came with. And we went to the gay bar in Iceland. There's just the one. And the drag queen recognized the whiteface, because this is very indicative of the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence. And so I got called up on stage to perform a song. So I did pictures of your dick. And I have this. This is another thing that can't go on YouTube. This is Reverend Squeaker. And so Reverend Squeaker comes around with me, and we bless nipples at the bars. And I just go up to somebody. It's like, would you like a nipple blessing? And then I just go.
It's squeak too.
Yeah, it's a dog.
How did that get through TSA?
Surprisingly easily, which given that it's Minneapolis TSA, they didn't care. And so when I busted it out at a gay bar in Iceland, the response was like, "Well, that's different." And so
he must be American.
He must be American. So, but yeah, I mean, there was just
not too much of that going on in Reykjavik.
Well, and it was also like June, so of course at 3:00 in the morning the sun is still up. So that was fine. And they have the funny thing about Iceland is that their closing time is a hard time. You can buy, you have last call, but at 2:00 or 3:00, the lights turn on, and then the bouncers will literally start pushing you towards the exit, and say it's time to go. Like, no, you get out now. And so I got pushed out by this lovely Viking man, and just stood on the streets of Reykjavik, a little buzzed, taking pictures of strangers. And then, of course, we had to go up to the National Cathedral, which was just up the hill. And so if you were lucky enough to get one of my Christmas cards 2 years ago, that's the National Cathedral, me just standing there like this.
Yep.
But yeah, no, it was a highlight, of course. So
that's
awesome. So here's the deal. So the Facebook one more time.
Oh crap! Okay, let me look it up real quick.
What'd you say? Oh well, no, we'll put it on. But the sisters group is called?
The Ladies of the Lakes.
Ladies of the Lakes, not to be mixed with the soccer moms.
Yeah, not the soccer moms from Lake Minnetonka. It's the Ladies of the Lakes. Our website is lolsisters.org.
Awesome. Okay. Awesome.
And you have to put in lolsisters.org. If not, you get sent to the children's toys. The LOL toys.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. The bitches, they violated our copyright. But since we're so small, we couldn't do a damn thing about it.
Well, didn't you guys have any other questions for... Yeah. What'd you say?
No, I really, I'm excited. I think we need to have you on again several times. Because, I mean, we could keep this podcast going for another 2 hours, I imagine, if we wanted to. And have so much awesome stuff to say. But no, it was really good having you on here, and it brings me back to when I was just a little young, dumb 21-year-old sitting around a campfire having a conversation with Rob about life and faith and dicks. So,
and don't forget the mannequin head that you drug around everywhere. That is my enduring memory of Rob.
Oh God, I forgot about I think I still have that head.
Do you still have the coffin?
No. Oh God, that coffin got stolen from my garage.
Oh no.
Oh, I was so upset, and Jim was so relieved.
Right.
God.
We borrowed that coffin from you for a show once.
Oh yeah.
If you remember that. And we were driving Alan, we were driving up with we had Slipknot masks on, and we had a coffin tied to the hood of our car.
I forgot about that. Yeah, no, it was so when I moved in with Jim didn't realize the extent of my love of Halloween and Christmas, like the holidays. And so when I moved in with him, I walk in with this 5-foot wooden coffin. And Jim's response was, "What is that?" And I'm like, "It's a coffin." He's like, "No, why? Why is this?" Like, for Halloween, he's like, "We live in a 1-bedroom apartment." And I'm like, "I'll put it on the balcony. We face the parking lot." He's like, "What are you doing to me?" And then it's gotten worse. And so now we're at the point where our front yard just gets turned into a massive cemetery with lighting and like fog machines.
Yeah. When I was at his house last, he's like, "So there's the Halloween row, and all the boards in the attic of the ceiling are sagging." And he's like, "And there's the Christmas, same thing, sagging."
Yeah.
He's got a lot of stuff.
Yeah. My goal is to be on TV. We're those people.
That's awesome.
And Jim wants nothing to do with it. So.
Because Jim's like, throw it out.
Yeah, Jim, he appreciates it when like Halloween comes and he's handing out candy and he sees like the kids like tentatively walking up our sidewalk. And there's Jim, the nicest guy ever, just sitting at the window, like handing out candy, like, "Here you go." And the kids like looking on the verge of tears, and I'm like, "Oh God, this is delicious." Well, I don't know if you can see it up here.
That's already blurred for YouTube. So you guys
yeah. So when I did my drag show yesterday, I had to put post-it notes up over all the penises. And that took a deceptively long time. Because there's a lot. And this is the funny, like when I walked across that stage at the Evangelical Covenant Church of Bemidji and got my lovely little Bible degree from Dr. Clausen and Dr. Giles, this is not where I imagined I'd be in life.
Right?
Yeah. This is different.
Nor did they.
I think Derek might have suspected.
Might have.
Oh, Derek.
Yeah. And I mean, honestly, I have 2 regrets in life. And one is not playing a musical instrument. And 2 is getting engaged to Parker. And the reason why is that if Parker and I had never dated and had never gotten engaged, we'd still be friends.
True.
Our traumas were similar. We found a lot of the same stuff funny. And there is a part of me that even now, I'll get an occasional message from her about what is going on in her life. And she's gotten off Facebook now, so it hasn't happened for a while. But, there was even one day where I was at the Bemidji Mall, Jim was working, and Parker came in. And so Parker and Jim met, and Jim being incredibly kind, and Parker being Parker. It was a very uncomfortable conversation for me. They were fine.
Yeah.
I was uncomfortable, and then Jim invited Parker and her husband to come over to play cards. And all I could think was, I'm going to be single because I'm going to kill him. But there was still the even now, like some of the people that I'm friends with, there are times where they remind me of Parker. And so that's one of my 2 regrets. I can't play a musical instrument to save my life. And I know that Parker and I would still be friends now if I hadn't decided to cover up my gayness by dating a state tournament champion winning female hockey player.
Yeah.
So you guys, if you're new to the show, definitely join our Discord. You can find us on Spotify, YouTube, a myriad of places. If you'd rather listen rather than watch, go to Spotify. But yeah, Rob's great. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I know I sure as hell did. This was fantastic. But yeah, this has been It's a Graham and Matt podcast. I'm Matt.
I'm Graham.
I'm Alan.
I'm wasted.
Peace, guys.
Peace.